Hello everyone and welcome. Today we'll see how to talk about crimes and law. We'll also see many relative clauses. Let's start. Let's start with crime and the law. He refused to admit he had committed a crime. He refused to admit he had committed a crime. To commit a crime is to break the law. She denied all knowledge of the gang and their activities. She denied all knowledge of the gang and their activities. To deny all knowledge is to say that you know nothing about something or somebody. It took the jury several hours to reach a verdict. It took the jury several hours to reach a verdict. To reach a verdict is to come to a decision about somebody's guilt or innocence. They were sure beyond reasonable doubt that she did it. They were sure beyond reasonable doubt that she did it. Beyond reasonable doubt means without uncertainty about somebody's guilt. She was sentenced to 80 hours of community service. She was sentenced to 80 hours of community service. Sentence somebody to something means to decide on a punishment in accordance with the law. I got away with cheating in my last exam. I got away with cheating in my last exam. To get away with something is to do a bad thing without being caught. The jury was chosen from a random group of people. The jury was chosen from a random group of people. Jury are the people who decide whether a person is guilty of a crime or not. In the end, the jury found him guilty of the robbery. In the end, the jury found him guilty of the robbery. To find somebody guilty or not guilty is to officially decide that someone has broken the law or has not broken the law. The jury convicted the criminal and the judge sent him to prison. The jury convicted the criminal and the judge sent him to prison. To convict a criminal means to find somebody guilty of a crime. This morning, the judge passed sentence on the attacker. This morning, the judge passed sentence on the attacker. To pass sentence is to say what punishment a criminal will have. He was released from prison after serving a sentence of 5 years. He was released from prison after serving a sentence of 5 years. To serve a sentence means to spend time in prison. After he left prison, he never offended again. After he left prison, he never offended again. To offend is to break a law or rule. In most countries, it is the law that all cars must be insured. In most countries, it is the law that all cars must be insured. To be insured is to be covered by insurance. It can be difficult to get a job with a criminal record. It can be difficult to get a job with a criminal record. Criminal record is a list of crimes that a person has committed. The rate of street crime, such as mugging, has risen. The rate of street crime, such as mugging, has risen. Street crime is a crime committed in a public place. The police help enforce the law. The police help enforce the law. To enforce here is to make people obey a rule or a law. They arrested the women for damaging cars. They arrested the women for damaging cars. To arrest is to use the power of the law to take and question somebody. After the burglary, I made a claim on my insurance. After the burglary, I made a claim on my insurance. To make a claim is to request that an insurance company pays you money. Fewer police officers on the street may lead to a crime wave. Fewer police officers on the street may lead to a crime wave. A crime wave is a lot of crimes happening suddenly in the same area. Police are training more experts to deal with white-collar crime. Police are training more experts to deal with white-collar crime. White-collar crime means financial, non-violent crimes. Let's see now how can we form the relative clauses. We need first relative pronouns. So English uses different relative pronouns to talk about people and things. With people, we can use who or that, and with things, we can use which or that. How to form defining relative clauses. If the relative pronoun is the subject of the relative clause, it must appear in the sentence. So we have the subject of the main clause here, the prisoner or the dog, who, that for the prisoner, escaped is very dangerous, or the dog, which or that escaped is very dangerous. So we have the subject here of the main clause, we have the relative pronoun, and the rest of the relative clause, then the return to main clause. If the relative pronoun is the subject of the relative clause, it can be left out. You can use whom when a person is the object, but this is very formal. We don't use it that much. Here we have the woman who or that you saw in the car is very dangerous. Or the weapon, silah, the weapon, which or that you saw in the car is very dangerous. Let's match up now the parts of the sentences. We have the dogs that work with the police are very well trained. The dogs that work with the police are very well trained. Number one, those children are the ones who want to be detectives. Those children are the ones who want to be detectives. Number two, that computer is the one that was stolen. That computer is the one that was stolen. Number three, this is the officer who arrested the criminal. This is the officer who arrested the criminal. Number four, a cyber criminal is a person who acts illegally online. A cyber criminal is a person who acts illegally online. Number five, that is the phone that I use to make video calls. That is the phone that I use to make video calls. Let's see now non-defining relative clauses. Non-defining relative clauses say more about a noun in the main clause. The main clause would still make sense without it. هو كأنه addition لنا. Okay? We spoke to Linda who had recently been mugged. The main clause هو we spoke to Linda. Comma. In writing, we say comma. Of course, in speaking, we just make a pause. Who had recently been mugged is non-defining relative clause. When they are in the middle of a sentence, they are separated from the main clause by 2 commas. We're talking about the writing here. The main clause هو her necklace which she had just bought was stolen. Her necklace was stolen. This is the main clause here, but we can put in the middle a relative clause, a non-defining relative clause to give more information here, which she had just bought. Let's see more examples. The suspect whom we had been following was arrested. The suspect whom we had been following was arrested. Whom is only used in a very formal situation. In a very formal situation. Usually we say who. We don't use whom so much. All the burglars were arrested, which was a great relief. All the burglars were arrested, which was a great relief. The relative pronoun هنا which can refer to the entire previous clause. نحكي على الحدث بكله اللي فكرة اللي هما تشدوا. They were arrested. Let's rewrite now the sentences, adding commas where necessary. The burglars who were arrested last night will be in court today. The burglars, comma, who were arrested last night, comma, will be in court today. Number 1. The violent criminals were not sent to jail, which surprised the victim. The violent criminals were not sent to jail, comma, which surprised the victim. Number 2. Detective Smith, who arrested the fraudster, works in a special department. Detective Smith, comma, who arrested the fraudster, comma, works in a special department. Number 3. Vivian Jones, who had worked for the bank for 10 years, was arrested yesterday. Vivian Jones, comma, who had worked for the bank for 10 years, comma, was arrested yesterday. Now let's see these 3 relative words, where, when, and whereby. Where is a relative word used to refer to a place. That is the place where the judge sits. The judge sits there. When is a relative word used to refer to a time. He's looking forward to the day when he will be released from prison. He's looking forward to the day of his release. Whereby is the relative word used to refer to a process. A trial is the process whereby a person is found guilty or innocent of a crime. To be found guilty, you must go through a trial process. Let's cross out the incorrect words in the sentences here. That is a restaurant where we first met. Number 1. Courtrooms are places lawyers argue their cases in front of a judge. Courtrooms are places where lawyers argue their cases in front of a judge. Number 2. Thursday is the night we usually go to the movies. Thursday is the night when we usually go to the movies. Sentencing is the legal process a judge decides the punishment. Sentencing is the legal process whereby a judge decides the punishment. Number 4. Morning coffee break is the time we gossip most. Morning coffee break is the time when we gossip most. Number 5. A police station is a place most criminals are taken at first. A police station is the place where most criminals are taken at first. Let's see now the word whose. Whose is a relative word used to show possession or belonging. This is the lawyer whose client lied in court. This lawyer's client lied in court. Let's see more examples here with whose. Whose can also be used to refer to things that belong to countries, organizations, towns, and so on. The UK is an example of a country whose traffic laws are very strict. This UK has very strict traffic laws. Smith and Smith, whose success rate is very high, is a very well-respected law firm. Smith and Smith has a very high success rate. Let's rewrite the sentences here using whose. Judge Wright hand writes all her letters. Her computer skills are not very good. Judge Wright, whose computer skills are not very good, handwrites all her letters. Number 1. Rodrigo deserves to be successful. His training regime is rigorous. Rodrigo, whose training regime is rigorous, deserves to be successful. Number 2. My sister has become very famous. Her first book was a huge success. My sister, whose first book was a huge success, has become very famous. Number 3. My neighbor Sarah loves training dogs. Her dogs always win competitions. My neighbor Sarah, whose dogs always win competitions, loves training dogs. Number 4. That company has excellent trading figures. Its employees work very hard. That company, whose employees work very hard, has excellent trading figures. And the last one. That school is very well respected. Their students always do well in exams. That school, whose students always do well in exams, is very well respected. That's it for today. Thank you so much for your attention and see you soon. Goodbye.